So today, I'll give maybe just another minute or two, but today we are going to do some interactive, like polls, stuff like that through Poll Everywhere. So if you get your phone handy, just to kind of give you an alert that it will be coming up, um, so that we can all participate with that. Actually, I'll share my screen just so if you want to log on, you can see how to do that as we wait. You don't have to answer the question yet, just so you can get to it. Mhm. So I almost feel like we're the island of the misfit kids. We are the people who are not on vacation. We are not anywhere fabulous. And if you are someplace fabulous, good on you for being here. Go do something else. But it's a pretty quiet summer for me, which I'm enjoying. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Just to be mindful of everybody's time, even though it is hopefully everybody's on summer break, it's still your time is still valuable. So thank you all for being here. It is our goodness sakes June monthly meetup, and today is going to be an interesting presentation. I feel like I am here with as many questions for you as I am to present anything for you. So, as we go through this, please know this one is going to be much more discussion and much more. I need your feedback. I think we all need each other's feedback as much as possible. We're going to talk about whether you have a student handbook, whether you have your own individual program, student code of conduct, in addition to your whatever your schools may be, and then whether you're implementing ethical conduct or ethical standards for your students. I will share a lot of information with you today about why this has come to fruition for my program. Much of it is personal to me, but you'll see other examples that it's just continuing with everyone. So I thought this would be a good precursor to our next monthly meetup, which is hosted by our outreach committee. And Nilufar, I see you on here. I didn't tell you I would call on you, but do you want to highlight what is going to happen next week or next month? Oh, you're on mute.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see everybody. I'm Nilufar Jamil. I am the Outreach Committee Chair. And so a couple of the things we do as the Outreach Committee is to reach out to the larger committee or present to the larger committee topics and issues that are helpful for us as educators and institutional managers, as well as to our students. So one of the topics we're discussing next month is on behavioral health. How is behavioral health being perceived by the states? Many of the states are taking a deeper look on behavioral health and how the courts are dealing with behavioral health in the court system. So we thought that it's an area that we should all learn and be part of, since the states are taking an interest to see if we can somehow contribute and take part in that discussion. So hopefully next month you will join the discussion. And on the discussion, we have somebody who works with the behavioral health unit of the Pennsylvania court system. We have somebody who is Judge Rohani Zapanta. She is in San Diego District Court. And we also have somebody from, I am forgetting the state, I think North Carolina, who is going to discuss this issue. So hopefully you will all join us.
Thank you. So when we talk about behavioral health, I think it's become more of an recognized, accepted. I'm not sure if that's the right word for it, but our court systems are really taking note of it. It's also something that we in our programs, I certainly am feeling behavioral issues with my students more than I ever have. Tragically, more than I ever have. Our world has shifted such that for whatever reason, be it mental illness, be it online delivery, things have changed, and we certainly don't have the same behavior from our students as I'm experiencing it. There is a portion of students that we don't see the behavior that is acceptable. And I have learned that when a student's behavior is unacceptable, I have very little recourse. Because I do not have a written guideline or standards for my program to be able to kick people out of my program for inappropriate behavior. And that's my failing. And I didn't know that I would have to do it because after 18 years, it didn't come up. And in the last 5 years, it has. And I'll go through some examples of how dire it has gotten. And please know, I'm at the University of Cincinnati. It's a large university. We have a very large program. We have over 500 students in our program. So some of this is, we went from a program in 2019 or 2020 even of 40 students to now a program of over 500 students. So percentage wise, it's probably the same number of students or percentage of students. But when you have that percentage, it certainly feels like it's become more of an issue. You have all, if you've heard me speak at all, you also know that I am a communication major, and I have studied the effect of online communication and people's perception as they communicate online. They are much more willing to cross a line and say things that they may not say to your face. And there's actually a theory on it. But it's a level of intimacy that they feel. It's a level of intimacy that they feel online that they do not feel face to face. And that's surprising to some people, but it's true. That level of intimacy allows people to say things and to take things much more personally because of this vacuous place where you sit online by yourself. So there certainly is research and cause behind it, and all of the behavioral and mental health issues that I think have been exacerbated by the pandemic, all of which brings us to, okay, now what do we do about this? It is to the point that we have got to take some steps. And so my program it's my summer project. And so I brought all of you guys into my summer project, is to create this student code of conduct for our program, as well as setting ethical guidelines. I also sit, among my many hats, I sat on the Oregon licensing of paralegals exam group. And I think it's also relevant that we start teaching our students and holding our students to ethical requirements while they're in our program, because once they go to sit for any of those exams, which they can do very quickly, the experience levels are not that long anymore. They're going to be held to those ethical standards, and they need to show that they understand those ethical standards. If we're not, we can say, oh, follow, NALA's or NIFBA's or those kinds of things, or the ABA's ethical rules. But if we're not holding them to those standards, we're not teaching them that. We're not teaching them how to do that. So it's something that I am working on this summer and creating ours I am sure that there's going to be lots of legal issues when I come in and say, I'm going to kick a student out of my program, even though they're still in the school. But it really has gotten to that point, and there is precedent certainly at our university to have those standards. Gail, you had a question or comment?
Well, just kind of to add what you said, at our school at Del Mar College, we have very good college policies for this for students. Kind of takes it out of our hands individually. So if we have an issue come up, they go over to retention and they go through the whole process. And that's kind of like you. I've had to do my first one last semester, and I thought it was handled very well. But the other thing I wanted to add to it also is in teaching the paralegals, like I do it in all of my classes, I have at least one assignment. Because sometimes the paralegal is also the first one online to see an issue with a lawyer, especially as a lot, I don't know about how y'all are, but in Texas, I don't know. I'm 68, I'm still practicing. So, but but they see that, the cognitive declines and that kind of thing. So I teach them how to handle that, because that can be tricky business, and they don't have a legal duty like we do to report that to the bar or to the court or whatever. So I also add that into my curriculum. It's something they need to deal with, how to handle that and how to recognize, when they have a lawyer themselves that are having issues.
I 100% agree. And you saw me kind of jokingly do it. It's always alcohol for me. It's always that their attorney is drinking. For you all know, but attorneys have such a high alcoholism rate or substance abuse rate. But that's always mine, that they come back and they're like, I think he was drinking at lunch, or she was doing this at, is it normal to have happy hour at 2 p.m. with clients coming in? And sometimes the answer is yes. And, I don't know really what else to say to that sometimes with my students, like, in a perfect world, no. So yeah, I agree with you, Gail. And I think that's a very wise approach to make sure that you start sharing those things and talking about those things ahead of time. So let's talk about some of those things. As I mentioned, we have a poll. So this is a word cloud poll. So we'll ask you to type in one word, maybe 2 words, about what issues do we have with student conduct? What issues are you seeing within our programs? And if you needed that a little bit bigger, sorry, should have done that before.
Being able to access, I wonder why. Okay, maybe I'm in now.
I can drop that into the chat too, that link. That might be a little bit easier for you. Are you in now, you said, Neilufar?
Hold on a minute. Okay, I got it now.
Perfect. You got a bunch of liars, it looks like so far. Oh, attention is one, yeah. Paying attention. So the way this word cloud works is the word that is most commonly used is the largest, right? And so, interestingly, we are going to talk about aggressive students. Certainly part of it. But I think all of these are really important. We look at things like professionalism, intimidation, wow, accountability, dishonesty, plagiarism, all of those things. AI is certainly AI, I give a lot of grace for, I guess I will say, because we are just really learning it. And I make it very clear, but we are still learning it. So yeah, I get the opportunity to teach a lot about dishonesty and AI and plagiarism right now, but I'm still giving a little grace because it's about a 2-year-old type of thing with ChatGPT as we go through. Anxiety, yeah. Harassment, we'll talk about that. Know it all. Oh, I am gonna love some of your advice on some of these things because yeah, these are all things that I'm experiencing as well. So thank you for participating in that. We'll keep coming back to this poll. So if you can leave that up. So I thought I'd go through and share with you my story. Started in 2019 and went on for about 3 years. Possibly still going on now. I'm waiting for the next text always coming from the student. So unfortunately, I've done a lot of research on what can a student actually harass a faculty member, and there's not a lot of research on that. It's a relatively novel issue that has not been addressed much. So these are some bits and pieces of actual text and things that I dealt with. So I'll go through this pretty quickly because I don't want to belabor my experience. I want to share different experiences also with you and have you not to make it a complaint fest. I really want to find solutions. But this was a particular student who I had she was complaining about a grade, nothing new at all. And it sent me a message. I like you. I'm sorry for the way I've treated you. 24 hours and 25 emails later, this is where we landed. It continued for years. So further statements and things that came where I finally got the school involved. I mean, up to that point, you can complain about grades all you want. She had sent something to me about burning down a building. I knew that she had told me early on that she had a felony conviction for burning things in the past. And so I took that very seriously and reported it. And all of these different things coming from me. After we had reported it, I had said, I'm not going to keep this meeting that I'm supposed to have with you because this is not appropriate. We're going to have to stop this, to which she only said coward, which I certainly took as aggressive as well. So you can see some of just the different things that have happened throughout these conversations. It got to the point that police were involved. I was begging the university to do something. I was advised to move out of my house because she knew where I lived. There were direct threats, to which the university responds with a care report. And that's where they look in to make sure that the student is not going to hurt themselves and making sure that they are supporting the student. We have zero support for faculty in this situation, is what I had learned. And that's from a very large, we're one of the largest universities in the country. This is from a very large university with a lot of resources, and nobody really knew what to do with me. My dean personally offered to pay for a hotel so that I could get out of the house. I had someplace else to go. That was okay. But the dean was contacting the police. The dean was, so we have 13 colleges. The dean of my college was begging the university to do something, and there just was not a path to protect a faculty member. Not only that, there was no path to get her out of my class. So she remained in my class. She didn't come, which I was fine with as well. But without the process, without due process, the school was not willing to forbid her from being in my class. So this has went on for probably, I've probably not had anything from her for about a year. But she has sued me twice, both dismissed. That's the thing that hurts me the most is I taught her civil litigation and she didn't know how to properly file or what the proper jurisdiction was. I took that kind of personally, but there's not a lawsuit to be had. And I was just like, gosh, come on, you know how to write a complaint better than this. So it was a horrible experience, no question. It took over a year to get her through the student code of conduct procedure at the school. They give multiple opportunities. They don't do hearings over the summer. You know, those kinds of processes that are typical in a university really affect a faculty member when they are, and she lives in the same county as I do. I mean, she lives very close to me. She knew where my house was. I mean, she at least knew how to look up addresses and things like that on the PVA. So, you know, it really was an eye opener for me, just saying this is not acceptable. Our college has, and by the way, too, in a university with 13 different colleges, our college had no power. It had to come from the university. Since then, the college has implemented some more steps that they're able to be a little bit more agile and reactive to such things. And that was directly born out of the issue that I had. This is not, though, unique. This is one I'm dealing with right now. So this is not toward me. It's not always me. But as program director, this is one of my adjuncts. These are messages to my adjunct. No adjunct wants to come and work for the pay that we pay anyway. And, you know, they do it because they love what they do. I assume most of you guys are in that position too. And this is all from the same student. When a student starts talking about your family members, when they start saying all of these different things, it's very concerning. Now, this particular student, interestingly, referenced a case there on the right-hand side that he's been involved with. So, of course, I looked it up. This particular student has been in multiple universities. If he applies to yours, let me know. I can give you some information. Has been in multiple universities, been involved in these lawsuits with these judges. The one in particular that he cited on there, he was harassing the judge. There was a no contact order, and so he went after the judge's wife and started harassing the judge's wife. And he has sued the different universities he's been at. We're an open access college, as I suspect many of you are. And so they get in, and there's not a lot that, unless we go through the process, that we can do about it. A third example, not as egregious, but still a frustration, is I've had a student who just went through academic dishonesty. You can get kicked out within a semester. Harassing a faculty member, it takes a lot longer. So there was an academic dishonesty hearing, and he was expelled for academic dishonesty and lying blatantly about it. So it was a little bit more than just cheating, but it went on. And he's in my class this semester, and I said, I know he got expelled. What happened? How is he in my class, and how do I handle this? Because he was expelled mid-semester, he is allowed to finish the semester. And so he gets to take my class. And he's not a bad student. He cheated and he lied, but he can do the work. And so he's likely to get a grade from me. And that's where I'm at, because my program does not have a policy that allows me to kick him out of my program. We have to go according to the university. So long, hard fought, hard to learn process. I tell you these things because I have failed in that, and this is not unique. It's multiple student after student after student. So my question to you, does your program have a handbook for students. Chris, how did you learn how to draw on there?
I didn't do it purposely.
I don't know how to do that. That's pretty cool.
If you click on the pen, it gives you options.
Ah. Well, please stop doing that, Chris.
I'm gonna erase it right now.
So maybe a majority do. So my next question though to you
Can I?
is, does your handbook address student code or student conduct beyond the school's policy? So I do have a handbook. I should have said I'm lying to you already. I do have a handbook. And I've researched a ton of people's handbooks. So if your handbook's online, I probably looked at your handbook. But most handbooks, as mine did, just goes through and tells you the academic sequence, the curriculum overview, introduces you to your faculty members, tells you about the program, talks about the ABA requirements. But it did not have a consequence for student dishonesty, for student harassment, for any of these conduct issues, because we have one at our university. I mean, I thought that was enough. And it obviously, from sharing those different things with you, it's not enough. So, as we start to look at these things, those are things to include. Next question on here: how long does it take for your school to take action against a student for a student code of conduct violation? I'm guessing I probably set this one differently. There it goes. So I'm going to bring this back to UC, by the way, and tell them that their policy is terrible. So yeah, mine would have fallen in with more than 6 months, just the time in my experience, because of the things that we have that support students, and those are really good things. And there needs to be the other side of it as well, or some ability within a program to be able to do something a little bit more too. So those are things to think about as well. How long is the process, and what can you do with that process? So next question: are you able to take action within your program before the university does? So again, things to think about. And I will definitely try to hit up some of you who have that ability, because, as I'm developing this, that is what I think is going to be my biggest holdup. And so I'll ask you guys for some of your experience with that, in terms of, and actually, you know what, let's just do that. Let's jump out of here. So for those of you who have your own student code of conduct, within your program, were you part of implementing that? I know sometimes those things just exist, before you even get there, but what is that process like? Can you share some of what that process is?
We don't have a separate program policy, but our college policy includes what we can do before we have to report it. That's how ours works.
Before you have to report it, what does that mean?
Yeah, so example, I had a student, one student was harassing another student. And that particular student, the harasser, stepped out a semester. And so they were able to help the student in the program. But before I had to report that harassment, our policies tell you things you can do to help solve the problem before you have to report it to the school. And back on your thing on your college helping you, I have my own issues on guns in schools, but sometimes you gotta love Texas. But I had a problem like you had with the student. It wasn't me, it was one of my adjuncts, and she reported it on the break. And they had the cops there within 10 minutes and took the person out and kicked them off the campus. And that's kind of hard to do, but so I'll be honest with you, I'm shocked your school has no more support than that, because I mean that guy was gone in 10 minutes. And then they made
If it had happened in person, it would have been different. It's because it was online.
Yeah, that's kind of, that's, and I don't know what they can do there. I'm going to kind of raise that with the schools to consider that in the policy with because we're doing 8-week and all sorts of strange stuff right now, but I'm going to raise that because I think that's scary. I mean, super scary.
Yeah.
Well, I
A
like
couple of questions.
Yeah.
One is, and this might be a very simplistic question, but I'm listening to you and thinking, is there any way that my college will allow me to have a policy of my own that override theirs? I don't think it's ever going to happen at the community college. It's always going to be the college's policy that we're going to comply with. And most of the time, college is responsive. In class, as you said, Paige, that something happens, you call call security and students are dragged away immediately. That's pretty immediate. Online is much more nebulous, hard to do, but we have a student behavior office and you report it to them and they do take action, contact the students and take it from there. I have been threatened a couple of times. There was one time many moons ago when I was young and naive and had no idea. I was just belligerently brave, and a student threatened me with gun, and he did bring in his gun and showed it around in the class, walked outside of my office. I just completely ignored it and said, just come on in, you buster. But anyway, no, I didn't say it, but I thought it. And and then the whole class was watching, and I guess I just felt a little bit of concern, but I also read the student and thought he's more bluster than anything else. And he then never came back to my class again. And there was another time, similar thing, where a student said, banged the table and said, I am going to the dean's office. And I said, good luck. So by all means. So those things have happened. I've had students, alumni who left and wasn't finding a job. And that was somehow our fault. Read me a big email and was going to report me to ABA. And I sat on it and I thought, I'm not even going to bother and respond. Not to mention all the times that I called you trying to find you a job and you never responded. Not to mention that I found you an internship and you couldn't even finish the internship, you left. So there are those. So these people certainly have issues of their own that come to us. But that was, sorry, I just went off there a little bit just to share my experience. But my question was that how are institutions allowing sub-student policies, if I can put it that way, instead of the institution's policy? How are they working together? And the second question was for Gail. Gail, you just mentioned something that before your university takes action, you are allowed to or advised to do certain things. Can you just enhance on that a little bit, what some of those things could be?
Well, before we have to report it to the college, then I first, our policy is that first you, I don't want to say a confrontation because that's too confrontational. You have a meeting with the student to try to resolve it. You can, if you want to, if you have a concern that the student might harm you, you can bring another faculty person into that conference and still preserve the confidentiality. Then your next option is, then you can go through the chair and have the chair deal with it. The chair can't resolve it, then it can go to the dean. But at that point, once you go to the chair, then the student has to do something formally in writing. So it's very basic at what you can do, but like you said, college, we're open enrollment. I can't really kick them out, but I can. And I'm in a pathway now where if you want to be safe at Del Mar, you go there, because I swear to God, everybody in my program packs a weapon with them. I mean, my dean even wears a holster gun to graduation, but he's a cop. You know, I'm in the public service group. So, but and my actual office is a gun area. I can bring a gun if I want to my office, which I think has a very chilling effect on education myself. So I don't do that. But that's, I mean, it's not a lot, but they do allow me to do take some action. I can put parameters on there, what they want to do in the classroom. If they're doing something online that's inappropriate, I'm allowed to cut them out. I'm allowed to mute the student. I'm actually allowed to kick them out of the remote class. I mean, some very basic stuff, but you know, and I've only had one that kind of remotely, she did just weird stuff. Swear to God, she's hired a kite all the time, but she would do kind of weird stuff. So I just cut her off one time. And amazingly enough, she called and said, "Why did you do that?" And I told her, and she says, oh, okay, well, I won't do that anymore. And then she just quit. So, and didn't quit the program, she just quit doing it. But so sometimes it works, but that's kind of, I mean, that's really basic stuff, but they do let us do that. And they let me cut them out. They let me kick them out of class. They let, you know, they let us call security and that kind of thing. But so, but I always report it anyway.
Sure.
Thank you.
Gina, you had a comment, and then Donna.
So at my school, we just reported to student support services and the dean, and then the executive director immediately gets involved. So I have a student currently, and he's on probation because he was just inappropriate and rude when he would call student support, just complaining, and this his tone, and also with other instructors. So he's currently on behavioral probation. So if he's I have him in class, so if he's disrespectful to me and I report it, he can be kicked out of the program. He's also on academic probation because he's repeated classes and is struggling. So for me, I feel very fortunate that I immediately, report it to the dean, student support, and then they elevate it right away. And we are fully remote, so we don't have in-person classes. So for me, I do feel fortunate. I feel so bad that you've had to deal with it in the way that you have. So much empathy goes out to you. So I would say if you could if they don't change the policy, but at least have a immediate reaction. I mean, because it does affect the whole group, the whole class when
Sure.
they are.
And I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. And I I don't want to over exaggerate anything. I can mute her. I can ask her to leave the class. I can do those kinds of things. That's all part of the process. I did immediately report it. The report comes as a care report for the student, not for the faculty member, which is the fascinating part of it.
That's so hard.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
so hard.
yeah.
I'm
And
sorry.
just as an odd little aside, you begin to worry, like, am I the person? Am I this? And the person who is running the university student conduct committee, who was a university employee, became a complainant because she harassed him so much and made very threatening death threats towards him as well. And he just became part of the process. And so there were two people who were part of the process that ended up as complainants in my experience, that still had to go through the same process. So, but thank you for the kind words. Donna, you had a comment or question? And then
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm in my car. I decided to have a grand opening today at work, but I work for a private college, and so we're a little bit different. The PCs, our program chairs, we have a lot of power to remove students out of our class, and then they cannot come back to our class or our campus until they meet with the dean and the executive board, which is our owners of the college. So I did have an issue that arose this year where a student threatened another student, and that student called her husband to the campus, and it became a really, really big issue, to the point where I had to physically get security involved to remove the student out of my class. And our our semesters, they're not really semesters. We do everything every 4 weeks. So we have to hurry up and get the process started so we can remove that student out of class so that they don't get into the next class. So we move very, very fast. But for me, I have to make sure I keep good documentation. So the first day of class for all of our new beginner students, they have to sign one of my contracts. And my contracts have specific rules that you have to follow in my program, not only following the school's policy, but also my policy. Because in legal, I try to make my policies just like a law firm. You know, this is how a law firm is going to be. You guys are going to eventually go into a law firm. You need to start acting like you work in a law firm when you come to school. So every student reads over it and they sign it. And then I will notarize the document. Like, this is a notarized document, so it's a legal binding document. And you know the rules. I'll give you a copy of it. So if you happen to break these rules and you get removed from our program, you can always revert back to what you signed because you read over it. You had enough time to read over it to sign it in class. So we've only had like 2 incidents where a student did threaten another student with a gun. And then we had another student who had documented psychotherapy issues to the point the psychotherapist told us that we have to walk on eggshells around this student because anything will trigger her. And of course, you know, we just can't discriminate and be like, oh, you can't come to our school because you have psycho issues. No, we had to literally document every single situation that occurred so that when we did remove her, we had backup saying this is what's going on. This student was causing this problems on these days. So everything that we do, we have to document it so that we have that backup. And as long as I document it, my administrative board is not going to go against me. They're going to actually go right behind me and go full force and make sure that we're safe on campus. With I have an employee who's the deputy district attorney for our county, and he works for me. So he has offered to get us licensed to carry weapons on campus, and also to just basically give us that kind of training that we need so that if something happens on our campus, because we are in Nevada, so we did have a UNLV shooting just recently, like a couple months ago. So now all the schools in Nevada are gearing up for their instructors to carry weapons because that was a very crazy situation. It hit too close to home. And so now, you know, we're seeing these students are more aggressive, they're more threatening. And we want to be able to protect ourselves because we have in-person classes. So all the incidents that I had were like literally in person. It was at nighttime. I was by myself. I was definitely terrified. And my husband was out of town, so I couldn't call him. So they're like, we're now getting training for like, you know, on-campus shootings, carrying a gun, you know, just the aggressive students, because we're seeing a higher population of them. But our school is allowing the program chairs to have full power and discretion to remove our students because we are the ones that's dealing with our students more than they are. So we know if our students are acting up or if they're not. So like I said, we're a private college. We have a lot of leeway in our department, like a lot of leeway. And I've only had to remove 2 students since I've been the PC.
Thank you. And so one of the things that I will ask all of you is those of you with handbooks, can we share? I'll put them all on the URL so that we can get all the different policies. So Donna, if you want to share yours, that would be amazing. Any of you who have those, I'd really like to get that repository of different things. I think that, well, one, it's kind of like Gina was saying, I'm so sorry that we've all had these experiences. Mine was not gun related. And, you know, the fact that we're talking about, I'm not getting into that side of the politics of it, but, you know, that's just, we need to share. We need to figure out what we can do and at least prepare ourselves as much as possible. All right, I'm going to butcher your name and I'm sorry. So I'm so glad to meet you. Is it Shiara?
Have to unmute. Shira. That's fine.
Shira.
Everyone does. I'm pleasantly surprised when someone pronounces my name correctly in the first try. First of all, Paige, I have to say that I am so sorry. I share Gina's sentiment. I'm sure everyone does, that you had to go through this extremely traumatic experience. And that's not what we have gotten into education for, right? And what I see is, you know, sort of with Donna and you know, it seems like we're sort of not necessarily escalating it, but we're not really trying to do strategies to tamper that sort of violence down, you know, and we're sort of reactive towards it, but we're not what kind of policies that we can all share and bring to sort of our our administrators in terms of how can we change the tenor of the classroom. And maybe that's, it's a larger societal issue, but this sort of acrimonious approach, this intolerance, somehow students feel like I read that email that she's a client, and that's what I'm seeing now, that students don't have a sense of respect, but see us as sort of customer service providers as opposed to educators. I have to share that I had 2 semesters ago, probably one of the worst teaching experiences I've ever had. My program is all online. I had 2 students that after the class, I was visibly just shaking. They ganged up on me. They would, the know-it-all, the sort of the Google fact checking, and I had to, distinguish between knowledge and wisdom, and but they actually took over the classroom. No one else could speak. No one, everyone else felt intimidated and harassed. One of the students, when I met with him to discuss his grade, used so much, vulgarity and profanity towards me, and then said, "I want to meet with you in person." But prior to that, in our online meeting, he had told me that he had felonies. So of course I investigated and found out that his felonies were domestic violence, had strangled his domestic partner. So at that point, I thought, no, there's no way I'm meeting with you in person. I had another that same, and then his counterpart was female, and she just sent me horrible, my policies was that you have to write to me in a professional manner with a salutation and closing and all that. And she sent me one with, praise Satan and, hail Satan. And so this is what you get. And, she had a cat who was somehow murdered. I mean, she had a lot of um, psychological issues, but they began directed at me, right? That I'm not competent. I'm, I'm, incompetent and horrible witch and all of this stuff. What I found was at my college, because it's a community college, even though we have a certificate program and an AS program, um, they weren't as responsive as I would have liked them to have been. It wasn't until my dean was threatened that things sort of escalated in terms of them being more responsive. And I went to my union about it. I was kept out of the loop in terms of what procedures they were doing with the student, right? Only until I requested information, I still didn't get any issues in terms of what are you doing in terms of remedial to encourage the student, one, not to harass me, but also not to harass other students in the classroom. And they resolved one student, the male student left the program, but the female student was allowed to continue the program, even though her behavior never changed. But she's not allowed to take any of my classes. So, but it's like the problem was just they just sort of passed the buck instead of saying this student doesn't really have the temperament to be in the program, to be a paralegal, and that we need to address this. I mean, she is to go, has to do an internship. How can I, with all good conscience, speak on her behalf to get to have an internship? So the college is not really, I think my college has not been really adept at addressing those issues, even though now my third dean in 3 years has told me that all of these sort of issues they've escalated throughout the entire his division. And so what do we do in terms of protecting instructors? Because you're right, our information, because we live in this world where students can just Google us and find out where we live, our private information. And I was concerned because I had the one student who, threatened me and had a history of domestic violence. So what are we doing in terms of protecting instructors and professors? And what are we doing in terms of sort of lowering that? How can we in our classroom provide some civility, some cordiality, professionalism. So I think those are really huge issues. And also protecting the integrity of the other students. Because when you have a bully in your classroom, it diminishes the learning experience for all students. And those students are paying, and they shouldn't be intimidated in the classroom. So I think this is a great discussion, and so thank you for raising it.
No, thank you. And so many of those same things was part of my process too. And I saw Chris just put something in the chat that it's a lean to protect the students. And, before this happened, I thought that was the right approach. Like, of course, we want to protect our students. We want our students to, as Kyra was saying, we want to get to the root of it. We want to help them. We want to know why is this happening and provide that support. And there's got to be a balance in there. And I am really saddened that this is not exclusive to me, but that it's everywhere. So, as I'm sitting here listening I am surprised at our unified experience that it's so common. As president of AAfPE, I tend to look at things pretty globally for AAfPE. So I do, I might put out the all call and say, please, everybody, let's get all of our handbooks together. And if there's interest, I can see putting together something. I'm totally speaking out of turn here, but at least AAfPE putting something together saying, here are some model guidelines, or here is some language, or here is some experience, or if that's something of interest for people. Obviously, we're not an accrediting body. We don't do those kinds of things, but I certainly want to provide as much information for all of you to be able to implement things within your program. So that's where I am at right now, is implementing this in my program. There are other programs at my university who do have the language, and I've totally stolen their handbook, that allows them to, as I will steal yours, but that allows them to, and you can steal mine as well, but to kick people out of their program. Not the university, but they do have that discretion, and it's because they are professional programs. A lot of our allied health, and to Kyra's point, where we have to place them in a practicum. Those are strong points that I have heard from the other programs that have such a policy that allow them to kick people out of their program. It's not just, can they get into an English class? It's that we are training you for a profession that has ethical standards. And so that does give us some protection and some power, if you will. I see Nilufar, then Gail, and I'm also dropping a link to an article that I found as I was going through this. This is the one article that I was able to find when I researched everything. It mirrored my experience, and sadly, it sounds like it's going to mirror many of your experiences as well. But I don't know that it has any answer, but it certainly at least is a documentation that these things happen. So Nilufar, and then Carol.
I just wondered if the fact that my institution, I actually find that they do respond quite quickly. And I'm wondering if it has something to do with the fact that we're an open enrollment institution, therefore the college kind of anticipates some of the behavioral issues that we're talking about, and therefore willing to take actions from the get-go. They're looking at their population, the demographics and whatnot, and saying we need to be more proactive. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there that if that could be one thing, and maybe it's not, maybe it has nothing to do with it. And the other thing, to Donna's point about having for her program, she has something specific that students need to sign on. One of the things I do, and everybody in my program does do, not for the big things, but for the little things like salutations and et cetera, on the syllabus, there is, you can do an addendum and have them sign it with some of these requirements, right? Because your syllabus, once they sign it, you can treat it as a contract. And we tell that to them from the beginning, repeat it 5 times throughout the semester. And sometimes that is helpful. That does work. So when an issue comes up and it goes to the dean actually, my dean is really good about saying, what does the syllabus say? Bring it out. Let's look at it and then tell the student and say, that was your contract. Comply with it. If you didn't, then you're out of here. Don't come to me with any complaints. So it's just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Gail?
This is more of an anecdote than a help, but I have quite a background and I'm very,
We have 4 minutes left, Gail, just letting you know.
Just
4 minutes.
real quick, I have quite a background and I really don't talk to it about my students. So my professor who teaches our interviewing and investigating class, we're very, very good friends. He had my students investigate me one time and they discovered I have a handgun license in Texas. And so I haven't really had a problem with them since then. And I, because all this stuff, and I'm kind of like, politically, I don't want to get into a political argument, but it just kind of helps. So they harass my other ones, but
I can still carry on my resume so they can read it.
Anyway, they're just kind of an anecdote. So.
Well, thank you all for sharing. Maybe it was a little bit of therapy for all of us to be able to share this, but I don't want it to be a downer at the same time. So I think the good that can come out of this discussion really is to share those handbooks, that information or policies, or if you have, I'll share my allied health handbook too, that other professional organization or professional programs have. The more that we can put things into place. I mean, we're lawyers, for goodness sake. We love to have a good contract. And so the more that we can put those things into place, at least, and if there is power, if I could say 85% of the paralegal programs have something like this and have the power to control who comes into the program, even though we're open access, we are not an open program. We do have, GPA requirements and things like that. So, if there is, I believe there's power in numbers and by example where things are working. So I will send out on the listserv a request for you, or just send it directly to me now would be great. But I'll send something out on the listserv to try to start gathering that. I'll make a folder in Earl to share that information. So feel free to look right into Earl. Hopefully I'll get some within the week or so. But I'll drop that right into there if you want to follow up on that. All of this to say, we have behavioral health issues, and the courts are dealing with it as well. Next month, again, during our monthly meetup, will be the outreach presentation on behavioral health. Also, the ABA is, their paralegal commission is also looking into mental health and behavioral health issues for paralegals. Paralegals deal with the same stresses lawyers do, or similar stresses at least as lawyers do, and they are starting to recognize that we need to have support for paralegals as a profession. And I think that certainly applies for our students as well as they're going into the profession. So thank you all for being here today. I appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words too and the support. And that is just reflected back to all of you too. None of us should have to go through these things, but let's figure out how to do it best. So thank you all very much. See you guys next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.